It is the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, it is Fulhamish's season preview 25-26. The new campaign is around the corner, and as is tradition now, we have found a local pub to frequent in. We are today at the wonderfully renovated Durrell Arms in Fulham. So thank you very much to Fab and the team here at the Durrell for having us. On the show today, Jack Collins, hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you. And we have double parked in terms of journalists. Jack Kelly, hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And Peter Rutzler is back as
Hello.
ever.
Good to see you guys. Looking
Good to
well.
see you too. You're fresh from look at his glowing tan.
I know.
In the States.
Look at it.
That could just be a wedding I had over the weekend. But yeah,
Still glowing.
it's more like sweating and losing body fat in America, I think, with the heat. But yeah.
I'm back discussing the better half of SW6.
Yes, the other half. Yeah.
The other half, yes. No, I don't want to drop you in it too much. This has become a bit of a tradition now to head to the pub, preview the new season. Jack, it is a pleasure to have you along with us for the ride. We will be doing pre-season predictions. We will be looking ahead to Brighton, of course, the opening fixture, and then going through a little bit further through the season as well. Hopes, fears, dreams, everything will be covered in the next hour. But Jack, we should probably dive into some of the latest Fulham news. I mean, a lot of worry, a lot of panic about Rodrigo Muniz, and a bit of excitement about Kevin. We kind of dismissed the idea of it happening last week on the podcast, and now it all seems a little bit back on again. Should we start though with Muniz, because that is the one I feel like everyone is talking about going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this a little bit last week, right? And I think that if you're getting 40-50 million pounds for Rodrigo Muniz, at the moment you're still paying for potential, right? That's probably a fair price. Like, in terms of actually what it would cost to get him out of there. We said this when the Leeds links happened earlier in the season, that if there was 50 million on the table, then there was a conversation to be had, right? I didn't think Leeds had that money. Now it seems like Atalanta do have that money, and they're pushing for this to go through. Now, there's a lot of conflicting reports at the moment about him, either saying that he didn't want to play at the weekend, whether he played in the first game, whether, all of the different things. None of that has become clear yet, right? It's all still very, very opaque in terms of what's going on. But I do think that there's the kind of two sides to this, and we said this in that if someone put 50 million pounds on the table for Rodrigo Muniz, I think on paper you'd probably accept that, right? But do you trust Fulham to get that right in terms of recruitment and bringing in the player to replace him? Right now, and considering how the transfer window has been thus far, I think the answer is probably no. And thus, is it easier or is it safer to basically stick with what you've got? Look, you said this last week, right, that you'd rather kind of hold fire, because at this point, are we going to be able to make sure that we get someone in of a similar caliber? Obviously there's links to Mehdi Taremi, who was a wonderful player when he was at Porto, barely featured for an Interside last year. And is he still the same player he was 2-3 years ago? I think that's probably up for debate. Could he get back to that level? Maybe. But it's a risk that you're taking. And I think that's the scary thing from Fulham perspective right now, is that it's not necessarily that we wouldn't get a requisite fee for Rodrigo Muniz, and like a fee that's kind of relevant to where he's at and his stature and his potential, but also, do you trust the club to get it right in terms of replacing him?
Yeah. Jack, there are these reports. Muniz didn't play in the Eintracht Frankfurt friendly. We're still none the wiser as to exactly why that was. I must admit, it feels to me a little bit of adding 2 and 2 and making 5. There was this other game against Eintracht Frankfurt that not much detail has been revealed by the club about it. Have you heard? What was the latest that you've heard?
Obviously, it's the most important question of the weekend. Did Muniz play in that first game? And I still, to this, we're on Tuesday now, and I still don't know the answer to that question. And I think that's what's making me insanely nervous. What I can say is that, what was the kickoff? 5. So when it got to about 4:05, the team still hadn't been released, and I was like, this is weird. Given an hour before kickoff, you usually just drop the team. And what had happened was the club tweeted out the team, the exact same 11 we played against Frankfurt, barring Muniz in for Raul Jimenez. And I was thinking, okay, Muniz is starting. That was swiftly deleted, and I saw a couple of people running down the stairs, sort of quite frantically, trying to either fix the situation or tell them that you put out the wrong team. Then Jimenez is in the team, Muniz is not on the bench. And the thing is, I think all the players that played in that first game still came to the cottage to watch the game. And there was a lot of people saying, someone texted me saying, have you seen Muniz's body language? And I said this yesterday, and I was like, well, you don't read too much into that. But I am now getting incredibly nervous about the situation because of this Champions League pool. Essentially, he's been offered, he's been offered the chance to join, or at least two clubs interested in terms of Leeds United, which is concrete interest, and Atalanta, which is serious concrete interest now. And Atalanta have Champions League football. And for a kid who came from Brazil, who came to England, who's now been offered the chance to play Champions League football as probably the main striker because they sold one of their other strikers, that makes me incredibly nervous. And the problem is, we have two strikers on the books. We have no Vinicius, we have Raul Jimenez, and we have Rodrigo Muniz. If we get to Saturday at 1:45 and we see the team, Jimenez up front with no Muniz on the bench, yeah, I think heads will be lost, and that is going to be very nervous. I feel very nervous about it. I think the question will come up on Thursday with Marco Silva, and he has probably reached boiling point at this stage of this summer because he hasn't really had the opportunity to speak to English media, apart from one interview he did before he went to Portugal. And I think he's going to say a few things that are going to create a bit of chaos, and I'm nervous.
Yeah. Peter, what's it been like looking at Fulham transfer world from the sidelines? I mean, your phone's probably never been quieter by the sounds of it, given the lack.
Yeah, but the other half of SW6 is not
say,
quite.
yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite the opposite.
No one in your Fulham contacts has got in touch with you all summer. What's it been like monitoring that from kind of a neutral perspective? Because there's a real divide, it feels like, that we've addressed all summer amongst the fan base, that stability is great. We haven't lost anyone key.
Yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, brought in basically no one other than a reserve goalkeeper. And there feels like a real split amongst people who are saying, no, it's fine, we'll get business done, stability is the main thing. And a lot of people saying, where's the ambition? This was the time to kick on when you had a stable squad.
I think from the outside, you never get that sense. And I think that was the case even when I was covering Fulham more of the time. Because when you're in it, there's much more of the heat and you think, oh my God, these things aren't happening. I think from the outside, I mean, the divide kind of makes sense, right? The squad is still good, haven't lost anyone. Yes, there were positions that Fulham were looking to strengthen, which we know about. Obviously, they need a winger, really, having lost Reece Nelson and Willian departing. A number 8 midfielder, a striker, because Vinicius is gone. They want the third option. And then the backup keeper. It always felt like complementing rather than needing to strengthen. It's when stuff like this happens where interest in who you think could be your number 9 throughout the whole season. Obviously, it's competition with Raul. But I think where Rodrigo Muniz is, he'd want to be in that position, playing every week. That's when you get worried, because it is about replacing. I couldn't see Muniz leaving without there being a replacement, which might prove frustrating if Muniz wants the move. I think with Muniz, he hasn't signed a new contract since he signed, has he? So that contract was a backup striker in the Championship. He's proven himself to be a bit better than that. And I think he will want better terms. Fulham have offered him a deal. He hasn't accepted that deal from what I know of it. So then you're in this scenario, right? I think he's got a year and then an option.
Yeah,
so
a year
it's
and an
two,
option.
technically 2. So if you're Fulham, you're probably feeling a bit okay with that.
Yeah.
But as long as the interest is consistent, then it's going to be an issue, and I can understand the worry. And I think with Marco Silva, it's not the first time in the summer where he's got, I think, would be unhappy with how he sees recruitment going. I think it was when they were first promoted where, you know, the noises I had with it, he was very, very unhappy, and that was understandable, I think, because of the transition to the Premier League and trying to push through certain deals. I think this time, it's tricky, right? Because the way Fulham have done their recruitment with Marco Silva at the helm has always been with these older players. It's an older niche. You guys have talked about this to death, about the ability to have these players come in and sell them on. I think there is a sort of a realisation and a kind of need that Fulham need to do a bit more of that. There has been big sales every year, right? But you're not your classic polish and, some young kid or
Polish and flip.
no Bournemouth, not
Yeah.
Brighton style. It's very different. Mitrovic and Palhinha. I mean, the FIFA Palhinha in hindsight looks amazing considering his age. Not sure how. The more you think about that, actually, because Bayern changed their coach and everything, it seems very odd. But you can't necessarily keep doing that and then keep investing, because it's always a loss. It's just always a loss. Even with the Riverside, once it's fully opening, once the hotel opens and everything, it'll increase the amount that can be spent. But I can't remember what I was doing. Maybe it was Chukwueze interest or something, and everyone was saying, why is it always loans? Why is it always loans? And part of that is probably because of the position and what they saw the player as being. But then also, like, a lot of Fulham's revenue goes straight onto the salaries. And Fulham don't pay cheap salaries. And that's part of signing those experienced players. So then you end up in a position where you have these sort of experienced players and buying them, and that's worked so well for Fulham. But how long can you keep doing that, knowing that it's got to be kept being offset by losses, right? So
On that point, like, I would ask, obviously we've talked about the fact that PSR might change and all of those different elements.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to become a kind of revenue to wages model that comes in afterwards. Are Fulham trying to be ahead of the game on this? Or is this just one of those things where the situation is so, not dire, that's probably the wrong word, but like is already so kind of forced one way that they kind of even think about what the future looks like yet?
I don't think it's trying to be. I think it's being sensible. I mean, they've been shadowing the new squad cost controls already in the Premier League. Clubs are, they're still filing it in the way they would for PSR, obviously with no punishment because that's not in place yet. It's sensible to be doing that. I think the point I'm getting at is you have a manager who likes experienced players, and that doesn't necessarily correlate with what's going to work for Fulham all the time. That's what I find quite interesting, because Marco Silva's done an unbelievable job. Like, for Fulham to stabilise Fulham, keep them in the Premier League, to be so adept and refine the recruitment, which he's had a big say in that. How the club move forwards is going to be interesting, because Marco's obviously in the last year of his contract. So it's all of these factors, I think, are all coming into it as well. And like you guys know Jack Covett's always down with the 21s, watching the likes of Sefridge, and unbelievable, really, really big moment to keep Seth because of the interest in him, and he's a really talented player. Josh King as well. We talk about wanting to get a number 8, so there's a straight away thing there. So you're going to sign a 28-year-old and put him on a longer term deal, which will block a pathway, and that's been a big issue for the academy. I mean, that's been a repeat conversation.
Yeah.
We'd have it every year. We've got all these wonderful players, they leave. Matarabi, Fabio Carvalho. So that's the inherent underlying sort of tension to it. Which comes back to Muniz, and you think, well, we should really try and keep him because he's an example of signing someone young and progressing him. But if they turn a profit, then it helps them out. So it's quite a long-winded answer to what your question was, but I think it's really interesting, because that's how I'm looking at it from the outside, thinking you've got all these factors, and it's not always easy. And I think certainly Fulham do need to do more business. And I don't think it'll be quiet. But as a squad, it's okay. It's good. It's just what the ambition is. And like Marco Silva's ambition, we all know, is very high. He'll want to be pushing on, want to be taking the next step close to Europe. It feels like closer. It will require that next step of investment to do that. And it's only going to get harder. I mean, I've covered Chelsea mainly, but more than 200 million this summer. You go through all of the big clubs doing that. It's really difficult. And it's interesting that you have Fulham in this position, Palace in this position. Palace haven't really spent. It looks like it's almost like they're waiting to see what happens with Gehi and Eberechi Eze before then doing something. But they're similar sort of profile of club, right? So unless you're doing the Bournemouth and Brighton flip, then it's tricky. So sorry, that was a really long-winded answer. I can't even remember what your question was.
It was excellent. It was
excellent.
excellent.
Started talking about Fulham.
The Peter Rutzler podcast. We're
Great.
done.
Cheers, guys. I'll see you later.
But it's funny, Ollie Glasner yesterday came out at a press conference. He was basically like, I'm really frustrated. And just one of the community, I'm really frustrated. We wanted to spend earlier in the window. I was promised investment. And I'm like, close your eyes and you could be hearing from Marco Silva.
Yeah.
I think is intriguing.
Yeah, interesting. We're operating probably with different aspirations, but there are plenty of clubs that haven't made that many signings. Spurs fans are losing their minds at the lack of activity. The ones that have done business are the ones mostly who have lost players or had players to replace. There's been a lot of keeping cards very close to the chest, unless you are our neighbours down the road.
The big four, right? Sure.
It's interesting, we were talking about this on the Times and for one of the podcasts about the teams that come up. So if you look at the ones, we'll talk about this with the predictions. I think in the last 5 years, most of them have gone up and come down. And the ones that haven't, I think one is like Brentford. And Brentford, you know how they run, they're exceptional with their data and whatever. There was Bournemouth, breached PSR to do it. There was Forest, breached PSR to do it. And then Fulham didn't. Like it's incredible.
But came pretty close.
Sure, but you have to. I mean, that's inevitable.
Yeah.
But didn't.
Yeah.
So it's what they've done has been impressive. It's just now is the point where you think, well, how do we sustain that? How do we progress? What's the best way for that?
The only crumb of comfort I'm taking from this summer is that a lot of teams in the other 14 outside the top 6 have had pretty quiet summers and pretty poor summers in terms of West Ham. Graham Potter came in the first day of pre-season, demanded signings, and they weren't there. They've brought in a couple of players. Brentford have had a really poor summer in terms of, and Mbuema's left, and Viss has basically fallen out with the club. You got Bournemouth, who have just sold Sabani this morning, and then a lot of players have left, and Fulham are in that space. But the issue I have with it is, I just go back to it. I feel like I've said it about 100 times this summer. All those quotes from Marco Silva, we've been planning since January this summer. There must have been a plan in place for what we wanted to do this summer. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it. And essentially, the plan wouldn't have been, let's sign nobody and wait until August. And we want a third striker. So if we sell Muniz, we'd have to get 2 in.
Yeah.
And there's not enough time to do that, in my personal opinion.
No. I mean, Jack, let's look holistically at the rest of the Premier League. It was such a weird season last year because you had big clubs down at the bottom of the table. Now, none of them went down because the bottom three, the three that came up, were so poor. But you had, obviously, United and Spurs right on the edge.
15th and 17th,
Yeah. Everton, West Ham down there as well. And you had the kind of new resurgence of, Fulham were part of that, although maybe less impressively than the likes of Forest in particular, but also Brighton, who came close to European football, and Bournemouth, who, whilst they fell away, at one point were being talked about as potential Champions League contenders. Yeah. Is this the season where there is an element of return to normality? Obviously, we just mentioned that Spurs have not made really many signings, but they do have a new manager at the helm. Manchester United have obviously gone big. Everton look like they have some ambition. Obviously, the signing of Jack Grealish, even though it's a loan, but with a big option, is quite a statement. And Dewsbury Hall is a decent acquisition for them. That's the fear, really, isn't it? Is that it doesn't feel likely that all those big teams are going to be quite as poor once again.
Yeah, I think especially Spurs and United, right? I just don't see them both finishing in the bottom half of the table. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to go and be in title races or Champions League races, but I don't think they'll be anywhere near where they were last season, which puts them back in the conversation for Europa League, for Conference League. And look, we spoke about it last year, right? It felt like a bit of an opportunity year in that there were some big guns missing from that part of the table. Now, obviously, Fulham fell short. That's okay. Falling short is where we, and finishing mid-table in the Premier League when we were bouncing between divisions would have been, the Hail Mary. They're like, please take me. I used to dream of days like this, right? There's kind of perspective to all of it. But I think you're probably right in that I'm still not convinced by Everton, and I think that they need far more in their attacking thirds to be able to actually push forwards. But then we don't know what the new stadium is going to look like, what it's going to feel like. Is it going to have the same kind of gravitas and pull that Goodison had, where they made that into a fortress? We don't know any of those things yet. Are the boos going to reverberate in the same kind of way around the Hill Dickinson? Who knows? But when you're kind of looking at it from, I think, United and Spurs in particular, yes, we expect them both to be back into the top half of the table. And so, therefore, the opportunities become less. We've talked about this before. It's one thing. I think that Marco Silva will look at it and say, okay, going into Europe would be amazing. Finishing 8th potentially and getting to the Conference League would be, such an incredible thing to achieve. That's a very difficult task, but it's one that's within the realms of possibility. I do think that he will be looking at what Palace did last year and thinking, can we lift a trophy? Because you look at them ending their entire history of no major trophies and kind of winning 2 in a summer and it being the best time ever to be a Palace fan, even with the threat of Eze leaving, even with the threat of Gay leaving, even with what's going on with Cass and them being relegated to the Conference League. Still, 2 trips to Wembley, 2 trophies, that is like the joy, the absolute joy of what it's
the
about.
pinnacle.
And so I think that Marcus will be looking at cup competitions again as well. And there is a level of this that we've seen in the last couple of years, right? That slight twist to start taking the cups more seriously than we had done in years gone by. And I think that maybe that feels more achievable, attainable, should we say, than competing with these huge spenders. Yeah, obviously you can outthink them, you can out-tactic them, you can outplay them, fine. And I think Fulham have the capability to do that. But I think in terms of consistency over a 38-game season, that's very difficult. Even Brighton, spent 200 odd million last summer. Yes, it was all reinvested funds. Like, I'm not criticising their strategy whatsoever. But, like, they've had the nous to be able to create that and bring that money in so that they can spend it. Fulham have not been operating on a similar model. So trying to compete with teams in that category even is difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And I think that what we're seeing here is potentially would the best possible season for Fulham be, let's not say winning it, but getting to Wembley, right, and finishing 11th as opposed to finishing 8th? I don't know what the answer to that question is, right? Like, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I wonder if in Marco's head that's slightly more achievable. And also, we've said this before, but it would sit him up there if he won the first major trophy in Fulham's history. Would he then be regarded as the greatest manager in Fulham's history? I mean, is Otley Glasner now the greatest manager in Palace's history? Maybe. Like, there's a conversation to be had about it, right? Like, so I do wonder if that's on the agenda, and there is some thought in terms of what the cups are going to look like as much as the league. Obviously, stability and safety is first priority, sure, but I wonder if, as opposed to being like, over 38 games, can we finish 8th? There is a kind of thought of, could we get to Wembley in one of these two cups?
Yeah, I mean, Jack, it does feel like that pressure of the cups is really on once again. And Marcus Silva kind of places that pressure on himself because ultimately that is the way of reaching the pinnacle at Fulham, right? And I wonder now if, because of what Palace and Newcastle to a point, lesser extent, achieved last season, you really see what difference. I mean, in all honesty, just as Jack says, even if we reached Wembley, it would be a hell of a landmark. But I know that won't satisfy Marco or the team to get knocked out in a semi-final, but it still would be a landmark. Because even if we finish 7th, 6th, our highest positions in the Premier League, no doubt we'd all be delighted, and that would also, be a glowing extra line for Marco Silva's CV at Fulham. But the real one is, can we break that up? Because we now are, Brighton aside, the biggest team in the country without a major honour.
And we've seen over the last few seasons how Brighton have got to Wembley and lost to Man United in the semi-final. Palace obviously winning the FA Cup. Like, teams are getting to Wembley and having their big days out, and sometimes winning those semi-finals and then winning the final. We saw it in Marco Silva's press conference from round 3. He said he wants to get to Wembley, he wants to get to the final. The ambition is there. The major turning point of Fulham's cup successes, or the way we perceive the cups, was Crawley away. And when we lost in pretty embarrassing fashion, and he went, hold on, why don't we take the cup seriously? And obviously, we were playing the kids, and obviously that was a bad night. But since then, we've
a really bad day.
It's terrible. And Tom Cairney said it in his interview when he signed the contract. Imagine getting to Wembley, as Fulham captain, and all he's done at the club. Obviously, he's done it before with the playoff final, but FA Cup, Carabao Cup. For me, it doesn't matter which one. It would be amazing to be at Wembley, to get to Wembley, and it's doable. Obviously you've got to have some luck on the way. You've got to win your games. You've got to have luck in the draws. But with the squad we have, the ambition we have, the manager we have, it's very, very attainable. We just need to turn up on the day. Because the Palace game, first 10 minutes, we were fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we completely dropped off. They scored 2 goals in 2 minutes. The game was gone. And that's the fine margins between Wembley and no Wembley. And then Palace went on to win the whole thing. And now they're in the Conference League, but they were in the Europa League. And just those moments change fortunes for the whole fan base, for the whole club. I remember being in London the same day Palace won the FA Cup, and all the Palace fans were out there in Leicester Square and absolutely having the best day of their life. And I was thinking, this could have been us. This genuinely could have been us if we'd have put the ball in the net and held on for a win. But
there's a lot of ifs, smiles, and maybes here.
If Adam Morton had got a second yellow,
we've been so close. Man United away in the FA Cup, Liverpool at home over 2 legs, Crystal Palace at home in the FA Cup. Like, we've had those occasions where we were almost there. can we go one better this season? I think Marco Silva will be eyeing that up immensely.
One key thing, though, behind actually the ability for Fulham to take the Cup seriously, Peter, and it's been a hallmark of the 3 seasons that Marco Silva has had in the Premier League, fast starts. We have started really well in every season. I never forget that first season back in the Premier League, and he was, as you rightly said, he was fuming pre-season with the business. It was that game against Liverpool, and it set the tone. And then that win against Brighton a couple of games later, a really, really good Brighton team at that time. Still a good team, but particularly good at that moment. That will be the key once again. The opening 5, you've got Brighton, Manchester United, Chelsea, Brentford, Leeds. Can Fulham make a fast start? Because all in all, pre-season has looked okay. We've got decent results out of it. Obviously, there's been a couple of behind closed doors games that we haven't been able to see, but actually the ones that we have been able to see, Fulham have looked decent. The Eintracht Frankfurt friendly, there was very, very little to write home about other than a magnificent free kick from Raul Jimenez. But I do think so often it's where it's made or break. Because actually, if after 5 games we haven't got a win, I think you can kiss all this conversation about cups and stuff goodbye, because actually that's not going to be the priority. And if you're fighting relegation, sure, you can do both, but you're far less likely to put all your eggs into the cup basket and play strong teams if actually you've got a relegation 6-pointer against Burnley at the weekend.
I was trying to think like a couple of years ago, I think you got asked a similar question. It was like, yeah, absolutely. And it was key, like the Liverpool game and changing the tone. But because of the teams that come up and the gap, and then you look at Fulham's squad, and don't get me wrong, if Fulham don't win any of their first 5 games, then of course it'll be like alarm bells ringing, there'll be fires at the cottage and whatever else. But I don't want to say it's like there's an insurance or whatever, but because it's so difficult for teams coming into the league now, and it's becoming a very noticeable problem. I think if you are Fulham and you look at the team and the strength of it, then I still wouldn't go into overdrive with the panic. But obviously, you have that good start, you stabilise in the league, everyone settles into it, everyone calms down a little bit, then you can build some momentum and rhythm, and you can see how far it will take you. I agree with Jack and Jack about the
that's easy
about the cups. I mean, that's just I don't want to say it's just, again, this is all sort of part of the structures of the modern Premier League, right? Where it's like you have groups, you have those that can pay stupid amounts of money, the smart ones trying to break into that in vain, and then there's sort of a middle group, and then those coming straight back down again.
Yeah.
Which, when you frame it in that way, I've been quite excited for this season, but now I'm thinking about it a bit more, and I'm starting to think, oh no, I hope it's not the same sort of pattern. But for Fulham, it's obviously doing well in the cups, and it is doable with the squad that Fulham have got. You'd hope that they'd be able to do it, and could get to it and have that moment, and you never know when you get there. I think the big thing, and actually when you started your question, it came straight into my mind. One of the big things about the 3 seasons so far under Silva in the Premier League has been no injuries. Big damaging injuries, because that's the one thing that can take a stable mid-table team and just send them down into a spiral. You can cope with it. I mean, the way Bournemouth did last season, midway through, where they just were struggling for numbers and they still picked up results, was incredibly impressive. You just worry that if you got a few at Fulham, and then it might become a bit more difficult. But that's where the squad looks okay, in that we still generally have 2 for each position, apart from, I think, left wing is the one position I think Fulham could do with a different profile in particular, just to rebalance the squad up there. But yeah, I mean, looking at the fixtures, it's definitely plausible. We don't really know how good. It's United and Spurs in there, right?
Chelsea.
United and Chelsea. Chelsea look like they'll have a good start just because they've got the momentum, and I think they'll flag later. United, I know they've looked quite good in pre-season, but it's United. You just don't know.
We lose that game 1-0 to a deflected strike.
We do know with Fulham it'll be a stoppage time winner. You're right, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at those opening 5, Jack, and I think a lot of pressure might fall on those Brentford and Leeds games, those kind of 4th and 5th ones, because it's a tricky opening start, right? I don't think any team should have a divine right to go to Brighton and win, although Fulham have had a brilliant record there down the years until last season. And we know that Manchester United and Chelsea, okay, there's there's chances there for sure. It's not Liverpool and Arsenal, but still, like, they're big clubs who have spent huge money. Therefore, I guess the fear is you don't win any of those first three, and then you're in the September international break, eyeing up those two fixtures with a lot of pressure.
It's similar to what happened a couple of years ago. I think we started, we beat Everton, and then we had a terrible defeat to Brentford, and then I think the third game, I can't quite remember, but the fourth game was Luton, and it was like, we have to win this.
I remember doing a podcast beforehand. I was like, it sounds really stupid, but this is must win. It's the fourth game of the season,
and we just about 1-0 Vinicius.
Just.
Yeah.
We they hit the post, and it was pretty horrible and scary. But look, Brighton away is not an ideal start. I think they're gonna be very strong this season. Man United at home, I mean, something's not right. I mean, you never know what you're going to get with Man United.
It's literally put your finger in the air and
4:30 on a Sunday. You could easily see Keane, Neville and Carragher sitting around saying, well, something's not right. It's like a graveyard, etc., etc. And after Fulham have beaten Manchester United, then you go to Chelsea and the emotion of that and the derby, and we won their last season. Coming off the Club World Cup, and you say they start strong. I think that we can have them. I think we could have them and beat them again. I
don't like that we've got Chelsea early. I like that we've got United early, and I really like that we've got Brighton early, because I think Brighton will settle into a real rhythm, but I don't know what they're going to look like on day one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like United, no idea. Not a clue. No one does. And that's fine. But Chelsea, I think I'm with Peter. I think they absolutely rollick into the season, and much as that makes me sad, I just feel like they're in a really good rhythm at the moment, and it's going to take. I think they will fall apart at some point, because I don't think there's enough leadership in that squad. But I don't like having them third game.
I just think the emotion of the game and
maybe,
and what it represents. I think that Fulham will give it that extra 10%. It's easy to say that, it's a bit of a cliche, but and then obviously the Brentford game, which, again, is too much emotion, and Keith Andrews, who I think is not going to be a very good Premier League manager, in my personal opinion. But you just never know what's going to happen, and it's an 8 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday night. There's going to be plenty of people in that home end who have had 6 or 7 hours of drinking. I think it's going to be a very good atmosphere, and I just hope we replicate what we did on the Monday night against them, albeit without the fact of the matter is that game we completely dominated but couldn't quite find a way through, and we managed to do it. I hope it's much more of a dominating performance where Fulham looked like they could score at an earlier stage, not the 90th minute.
Fingers crossed.
I enjoyed that once. I don't want it again.
Yeah. In fact, quite a lot of the late drama. Let's get games done and dusted a little bit earlier, and hopefully lose a few less leads this season. All right, we will take a break there. Afterwards, we'll look ahead to the challenge posed by Brighton on Saturday. The 25-26 season is shaping up to be a big one for Fulham, and one thing you need ahead of it is NordVPN, the fastest VPN on the planet that allows you to watch football matches from wherever you are in the world, on either your phone, your tablet, or your laptop. For instance, you could use NordVPN to watch Premier League matches for a fraction of the price, including those 3 p.m. kickoffs that aren't available in this country. Or if you go on holiday this summer, you can use NordVPN to access your UK TV subscriptions. And right now, you can use NordVPN on up to 10 devices, which means you can share the amazing benefits that NordVPN has with your family or your friends. And you can get a great deal when you sign up to NordVPN at nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Not only will you get a huge discount, but you'll also get 4 months extra as well. And it's entirely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So to get that special discount plus 4 free months, go to nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. That's nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Sammy here on the Fulhamish pre-season preview with Jack, and Peter. A couple of quick plugs, if you don't mind. Firstly, we have got a new podcast called First Up Football, where each day we look back at the day's news. It's available every single morning. I am the host, and I would absolutely love it if you could listen somewhere, watch. It's on YouTube. Just search First Up Football. We will put a link in the description. Any help that you can provide on that one would be greatly appreciated. Also, just say that our friends at the Fulham Foundation are still selling season passes for the Fulham Flutter. If you go to fulham-flutter.com, you can get your Fulham Flutter pass for all 19 home games. It costs £38. All the money goes straight to the Fulham Foundation. and you can win awesome prizes such as signed shirts, matchday hospitality. And actually, this is interesting. Kieran McGinley listened to this podcast last week. He signed up for the season pass, and he actually won their pre-season giveaway of a signed shirt.
There you go.
This is a public service. I keep
PSA, Sammy James.
I keep trying to tell people. So congratulations, Kieran, on winning that. And yeah, go to fulham-flutter.com and you might be like Kieran, going away with an excellent bit of Fulham swaz to get your season properly started. Right, let's look ahead to Brighton on Saturday. Only so much that we can preview, given that we've not seen Brighton in action this season. As ever, they've signed a couple of players that not many of us have heard of. Kostelas, the striker from Olympiacos, Maxim Tekoipa, Tom Watson, who obviously scored that winning goal for Sunderland in the playoff final, Diego Coppola from Hellas Verona. Jack, you mentioned in part one that you're quite happy to be playing Brighton now rather than in the season once they've got their flow together. Do you expect it to be a strong season for Brighton? I felt like the first season under Rutzler was pretty much a success, although there were a few shaky moments in there where it didn't quite click.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really interesting, and I'm really hot on Brighton. I think they will be in the conversation for the 5th Champions League place. I've put them in. Carl Anker does this pre-season prediction football amnesty thing every summer. Mine was that Brighton will be in the top 4 at Christmas. So I'm hot on this. I like Rutzler. I think that a second season where they've just managed to trim the fat on the squad a little bit in terms of players that were obviously excellent but didn't necessarily suit him. Someone like a Simon Adingra, who's obviously gone to Sunderland, who just didn't quite fit the high-pressing style. Doesn't mean he's not an incredibly talented player, but just didn't quite work with Rutzler. They've brought in some really interesting players. I think Kostelas as a kind of Joao Pedro replacement makes loads of sense. He's an attacking midfielder. I think we'll see a fair bit of him playing, as a second striker, potentially even as a number 9. Obviously, we've seen Simas come back in. He was signed from Nuremberg last year, went back on loan. He still feels very, very raw, although they have given him the number 9 shirt. So he's one to keep an eye on. Maxim Tekoipa, I think, is an upgrade at left back on Pervis Stupinan. I think he's a really good player. They've got in some depth now at centre back in Coppola and Buscalia as well, who can both play kind of multiple positions. I think it kind of hinges on whether they keep Carlos Baleba. Obviously, interest at the moment from Manchester United. Do not be surprised if Liverpool enter that conversation because they're long-term admirers, and whilst United are the ones trying to move on this, I feel like if a bid goes in, then Liverpool will get involved in that conversation as well. But I do think it's a good thing that we're playing Brighton early, just before they can find that rhythm completely. It's obviously an exciting time, I think, for Brighton fans, and there is a real sense that Rutzler can step up in his second season and continue to push them onwards. I think there's an opportunity here without European football for them to really compete in the Champions League conversations. But I think that there is a chance early doors that it just takes them a little while to settle.
Yeah. And Jack, from a Fulham perspective, what lineup do we expect to see? I mean, I have a sneaky feeling, I'm going to put it out there, and maybe I'm manifesting, that Rodrigo Muniz starts up front. Ooh. And I didn't say it in the first part, it is my sneaky suspicion that, don't get me wrong, I believe all the interest is genuine. I don't think Fulham have made that up. And I don't think Fulham have done any of this on purpose. I'm sure that there was a reason that Muniz ended up not playing on Saturday. Maybe it is new contract, who knows. I've just got this feeling that we see him in that green shirt on Saturday.
Yeah, green shirt, that's exciting. I think Raul Jimenez would feel quite hard done by after scoring a 30-yard free kick on Saturday not to be starting, but I would prefer to see Rodrigo start. It would probably calm down a lot of the horrible rumours that are going around at the moment. I think the big question is it Josh King's season or is it Emil Smith-Rowe's season?
Or both.
Or we have a bit of both, honestly. I think that we'll probably see Iwobi on the left, Wilson on the right, and then it's basically King or Smith-Rowe. And my heart says King, but my head probably says Smith-Rowe, who is still yet to play 90 minutes for Fulham. And I would like to know if Marco Silva thinks that Smith-Rowe is in a position where he can play 90 minutes. I definitely feel like he looks a little bit leaner. He looks a little bit sharper in pre-season. Scored a couple of very nice goals. Lukic Berger, I don't know, going backwards. Lukic Berger, then one of obviously King Smith-Rowe, and then obviously, if Sessegnon's okay, then he plays left back, Tete on the right, and then Bassi, Anderson, and then Leno in goal. Will we see a Senga because Sessegnon might not be ready? Maybe. Will we see Cuenca at left back? potentially if that's an option.
Or Bassi at left back and Cuenca at centre back. I think there's a lot of options there.
Yeah.
To be honest, I am quite surprised given, I like Sessegnon and I know he can play left back. I find it relatively surprising he's first choice ahead of someone like Timothy Castagna.
That's true.
Last season we obviously had problems where Kenny Tete was injured. We needed Castagna at right back and even he was injured. And, I would like to see a Cuenca into this team. If you move Bassi to left back, a position he's played at very, very well previously, it gives Cuenca that freedom, as some of his Spanish supporters are calling for desperately on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen this hashtag Free Cuenca on pretty much every post that Fulham are posting at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, huge shrug. That's probably how I'd respond to that. It's fine.
I don't know, but Marco's made it pretty clear though that if Anthony Robinson isn't fit, and it seems that way, that Sessegnon is his first choice at left back.
I think that's because of the attacking output. There's quite a clear defensive drop off from Anthony Robinson to Ryan Sessegnon, right? But how much of Fulham's attacking play over the last couple of years has come down the left hand side? And look, we spoke about the other week that seeing Fulham kind of starting to attack down that right and kind of diversify that attacking portfolio a little bit more is a good thing. But still, that is our first channel of attack. And if you have Sessegnon going down that wing and putting balls into the box, etc., then it gives Fulham something in terms of an outball. Does it make us defensively weaker? Yeah. But if that is at the expense, if putting someone else in there at the expense of Sessegnon means that we can't attack down that left-hand side, it completely smashes up Fulham's game plan. I think that's why it's been the case that it has been.
Yeah. All right, let's do some pre-season predictions. It's what we all came for, isn't it? And people have probably skipped to the end of the podcast just to hear this. So let's dive into it. Mostly the same questions as normal, although I did put a couple of curveballs in for the team here. We'll start though with the normal one, Fulham's final position, and as a little bonus, points tally. So Peter, do you want to do us the honours?
I was doing this morning. I tried to do a full league table, and it's a complete mess in the middle, isn't it? Because you just have no idea. There's so many variables, particularly with Forest in Europe, Palace in Europe. So I put Fulham 11th.
Okay, it's a pretty solid bet over the years. You went for 11th last year and got it right.
So mainly because it's consistent, right? There hasn't been too much change. 54 points, so maybe a slight drop, but even then that's quite high, I think, for that area of the table historically. But yeah, that's my
Jack.
Yeah, it's been difficult. I haven't solidified my full Premier League table, but I think Fulham will finish around 12th with we finished on 54 points last season, so I think it will be around 51.
Okay, a bit more pessimistic than I expected from you, Jack. Jack C.
Quite close. I also went 12th. I know that's Palace's spot. So with them in Europe, I feel like there might be a little bit of a drop off, so they might finish 13th for once. So I'm going to say Fulham 12th with 52 was what I had written down, so not miles off JK.
Okay. As ever, I went a little bit over. I added a little bit of tax on top. I went 10th and 55.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's hardly over the top, is it?
No. Yeah. Third.
Push the boat out, Sammy. Blimey.
Champions. Also my hot take. No. Yeah. 10th, 55. Think that seems about right. I think for me, it's the fact that I think that, yes, of course, some of the bigger teams are going to do better. But I do think that with so many teams in Europe, I think there are opportunities for a hopefully fresh, injury-free, we hope, Fulham side to get some scalps and maybe just take advantage of the fact that we're not in Europe this season.
It's half the league, isn't it, in Europe? So it's definitely even just teams coming off those fixtures. Internationals will be more important this year with the World Cup year for some, so they'll take they won't get the same amount of dropout.
Although I have factored in that we do lose after every international break.
Yeah, that's
always
and AFCON through December.
Oh yeah. That screws us over.
That's a slight issue there.
Issues.
Next up, Fulham's top 3 scorers, and in order, please. I'll go in the different order on this sofa. So Jack.
So this is assuming that Rodrigo Muniz stays at the club at the moment. So if he does, then Muniz top, Harry Wilson second, Raul third is what I've gone.
Jack.
Yeah, similar actually. Muniz top, Wilson second, Smith Rowe third.
Okay.
Because I've sort of gone, is Muniz going to be there? So I've left it. I'll go with what I've got. I've got Wilson top, Jimenez second, Smith Rowe third. I went Smith Rowe mad last year, didn't I? I was trying to think where
I went Iwobi mad, and he did deliver.
That did deliver. Smith Rowe didn't. Maybe
I went exactly the same as Jack. Kelly, Muniz, Wilson, and then ESR.
ESR.
I really wanted to put Josh King in there, but I think it's a bit. I think it's a bit early. I think he will contribute this season, have some great moments, but I don't know if the goal tally is necessarily going to get there. I think there's going to be one or two special moments with Josh King, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to be like, oh, he's going to get 6 goals this season. We'll see. Most assists and how many? Peter?
Slightly nervous because of his fitness, but Robinson again.
Yeah.
How many? I'll do like a slight drop, so I'll do 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to say who I think because it gives away my hot take, but in that, so then I'm going to go with.
Oh,
Robinson.
save it.
I'll save the hot take. But
If your hot take is linked to your assists, then save it.
Well, yeah, there you go then.
All right, Jack.
You don't want to go over the top. Josh King 11.
No.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Josh King 11. Like, I think also it's linked to my hot take as well. Like, I think by Christmas, Josh King is just a fixture in this team. Doesn't drop out at the end of the season.
Okay. I went Robinson 8 because I just think that
I'm worried about his fitness. Like, I would have gone Anthony Robinson, but exactly on what Peter said. I'm one of my hot takes I thought about was like Anthony Robinson plays like 60% of Fulham's minutes this year, which I really don't want to happen, but I'm concerned.
It's one of the things with Robinson. He's been exceptional, but he's always been carrying stuff. I feel like every time I spoke to him, he'd be like, "Yeah, I've been carrying this thing on my groin." It was like before the previous World Cup.
Fixed,
like,
man.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for a unanimous answer here. Most yellow cards. Jack Collins.
Sasha 13.
Lukic 18.
18.
Is that even possible?
I don't think that's physically possible.
15.
That still comes with a 3-game ban, I think.
Yeah, it does.
Peter.
Lukic with 10.
I went Lukic 11, 18. I mean, that's the hot take. If that comes true,
I'll stick with 18, please, because if it
we'll
does
do a
happen.
bus parade for you, Jack, if you get that one right. Okay, most appearances without scoring. This is a new category this year. Outfield, obviously, Bernd Leno would win this. You never know, especially if we stick him up front, which is my plan. Peter Rutzler? Sander.
Oh, yeah. That's a good shout. Jorge Cuenca.
Okay.
Sasha.
Okay. I went Kenny Tete.
Yeah,
fair
safe.
enough.
He doesn't really pop up with too many goals. I thought about Sander.
Is it most appearances without scoring? Right.
Yeah.
That's key. See, Sanders on for like 38 appearances.
But I have a feeling Sander gets 1 goal.
Yeah, I think he'll.
Sander,
Well,
yeah,
again,
season.
we'll come back to this, but I think that there is goals in Sanderberger this year.
Yeah, I have a feeling he just gets 1, and it's really random, and it'll be like February. So could Kenny Tete equally, but I just got a feeling. Okay, this is the really fun one. Player of the season, and I'm hoping for some different answers here. So, Jack.
Josh King.
Wow.
It's gone all in.
You really have gone all in.
Smith Rowe.
I mean, that would be one hell of a transformation. Okay.
Got burnt with Smith Rowe last year, so Calvin Bassey.
Nice.
Okay.
That's the safe bet.
I went Harry Wilson.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I feel like every player has their time, and I feel like it's Harry's time to shine. I feel like, obviously, there was that first championship season where he was a brilliant player, but massively overshadowed by the work of Mitrovic. And then every year he's had bits of the season where he's been brilliant. I just really want one full Harry Wilson excellent campaign. I think this year can be that year.
If he stays fit, I think that's a great bet.
I think the top scorer.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Okay, more Premier League stuff. Top 4, Peter?
In order.
Might as well.
We still don't know City's charges, do we? And Chelsea have charges as well. That could be curious. Anyway, without anything else we don't know, Liverpool to win it, Chelsea second, City, Arsenal.
Okay.
Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea for my sins.
Yeah, there you go.
I
I did like the Newcastle shout, but it was ridiculous as well. Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, City.
I'm not sold on Arsenal.
Yeah, I am.
have big doubts.
I think this could be a final day job. I reckon we could have. I also think here's my hot take from the top 4. I reckon the top 4 are like 10 points clear of 5th. There's a massive gap between the top 4 and everyone else.
Yeah, I can see. I agree with that.
I'm going to go. I think Arsenal will win it.
Yeah, okay. I quite like it.
I just think I know Liverpool's the obvious answer. It was maybe just after the Community Shield. I was like, I feel like there'll be a few bedding in problems. And I think that last season, Liverpool were obviously brilliant for a majority of the season, but they had some weird moments in there where I think their fallibility was exposed. The Champions League tie, even just what happened in some of the cup competitions as well. That meek defeat to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final just felt like teams started to kind of figure Liverpool out a little bit. Now, I could look really stupid when they get 100 points and win the league, but just got a feeling that Arsenal just get it done for all of our sakes. Just like
I feel like stylistically they've been regressing, and then you throw Gyökeres in, and he's very different to everything that they had been doing.
I agree. I just think he's going to he's the kind of player that will bulldoze through walls to score goals, and that's the kind of thing that they probably need. Like, can he score? It's not about can he score 20, 30 goals. It's can he score the goal when they're 1-1 against West Ham away? Can he score the goal at Craven Cottage? Like, that's going to be the question of whether he's a success or not.
I am much more worried about Arsenal. Last season, I always thought you faced Arsenal and you had a chance, because you always just wondered if you get a goal, if you make it niggly, they're going to struggle to break through.
They did have injuries last season as well.
Yeah.
Which is such a good thing.
Relegated 3. Now, obviously, for the last 2 seasons, all teams that have come up have come back down. Are we predicting that cycle will break, Jack?
Yes. Burnley, Wolves, West Ham.
Double.
West Ham. I know they've been bad, but that is...
I think Graham Potter's sacked by Christmas. In fact, take that back. I think Graham Potter's the first manager sacked.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there. This is really difficult. It's the first time where I've actually been quite impressed with business from 2 out of the 3. I could say 3 out of the 3 with Okachukwu and Broja coming in. I just have no hope in Scott Parker at Premier League level. So Burnley, this is really. I think Sunderland will go, but they'll give it a good go. And I have to say, I think the Bees are. I think Brentford will go down.
Wouldn't be a Fulhamish podcast without Brentford going down in the predictions. Peter?
Yeah, I'm with Jack on Wolves going down, because they haven't replaced Nouri. Well, have they? Not really.
Yeah, they brought in David Wolfer, who was just a very average defender in the Eredivisie.
That's what I mean. But in terms of like him and Cunha, in terms of the, I think, percentage of goals, I say on a point, it's like 55% or something like that. That's massive. So yeah, and Semedo left as well. So it's both.
It's Jurgen Strand-Larsen or bust for Wolves, I think.
Which is not the best bet. So Wolves, I've got them 19th. I've got Sunderland rock bottom. I know they've spent really well, but they were so far off from the playoffs to the top, and then you've got to then break to, like, you have to spend. So I think, and I think I get the sense from them that they're kind of aware that they may have to bounce back to come back up. So Sunderland bottom, Wolves, and then Burnley as well. The other thing with Burnley, I mean, the defence was so good, and that makes them interesting, because you think most of the teams that come up have been trying to be expansive, and it's just pointless. But then they lost
Trafford and CJ
Egan-Riley, which is really, really big. So I think there'll be problems. I think Leeds will be all right. But I actually think Farke could be the first manager sacked, and then they stay up.
Yeah. Okay. They brought in a load of absolute giants. Like Leeds United are literally land of the 6'4" monsters now, which is a really good bet if you're trying to stay in the division.
I was really torn on Leeds, especially when you see kind of some of Farke's complaints about not bringing enough signings. But I have gone Sunderland, Brentford, Wolves.
You think Scott Parker keeps Burnley in the division?
I've got a funny feeling about that.
Wow. Okay, fair enough.
I've got a funny
interesting
feeling
bet
about Burnley, and I just thought their defensive record, I know they've lost a couple of key players in that, but I just thought it was interesting, and I feel like he might finally figure out this division. Finally, Fulham hot take. I will put it out there, because I didn't do it last year. I'm going for it again. Fulham to win the Carabao Cup.
Wow.
It's back on.
It's not being ridiculed.
The Carabao dream is on.
Yeah.
The second round draw comes out
up the moose
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Yeah. So please don't be bad. I'm going for it. Jack?
So I've got 2. One of them is that Josh King gets given the 10 shirt by Tom Kearney at the end of the season as he leaves.
Some sort of
that handover.
Some ceremonial.
Ceremonial handover from one to the other. That's going to be nice. The other is we scored 10 plus from set pieces. I think we'll work it out.
That new set piece coach that I don't think's quite started yet is going to.
No, I think this is the season we work out set pieces.
Are you the set piece coach?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Big reveal.
I've got two as well. One that I'm quite strong about and one that I'm not so strong about, but I might as well go for it. The first one I'm not so strong about is that Fulham will do the double over one of Arsenal or Man City.
Right.
One of.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And the big one I'm really hot on is a double-double from Smith Rowe, 10 goals, 10 assists plus.
I
Nice.
swear I did something similar like that last year.
I did
It
that.
not work
I
out
did
well.
that for a Wobie last year. I said he'd do a
That did
double.
work, didn't nearly. Yeah,
He got
could
like
do.
he got 9 and 8 or something like that.
He really from back, and he had that 9 and 8 in like
Yeah,
February
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
It really looked like it was on, and then he just slowed down. Peter, hot take.
Well, I was going to do something on Josh King. I was going to say, like, I make more than 10 appearances, but I'm going to leave that. I'm going to say Fulham will have the fewest penalties in the Premier League of any team.
What? Do we score or concede?
No, given the
Given.
fewest. And
Okay.
Marco Silva to bring it up by the end of the season.
Okay, I love
Yeah.
it. That's one we can. That's one we can watch out for. We don't get very many, do we? When you think
No.
about
We
it.
don't have that many dribbly
No,
boys.
and now even fewer dribblers. So
Yeah.
There is a case of like the hot take that no one really wants to say, which I don't necessarily think it is my hot take, but it is something that I'm fairly concerned about. Is, you know, does Marco Silva last the season?
Yeah, I also
Is he
I
hearing?
don't want to talk about this though.
Yeah.
But I also
Is he
thought
hearing
about
me?
I also thought about
Yeah.
this.
But hey, there you go.
Yeah, all right. Well, that will do for the Fulhamish season preview. Thank you so much for listening and watching today. Thank you to the beautiful Durrell Arms. I can't tell you how nicely they've done this place up.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It is absolutely wonderful. And also, not only a great pub for Fulham home games, but also that third game of the season at Stamford Bridge. This is the place to come.
Yeah, 100%.
Before and after as well. So, yeah, thank you for the Durrell for putting us up. Jack Collins, thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Always a pleasure.
Jack Kelly, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Peter Rutzler, thank you.
no, thank you. Always fun.
Do check out Peter's writing over at The Times and on their podcasts as well. Thank you very much for watching. You Whites!
You whites.